Hi, Bay Community. Dr. Court here again. It's another Wednesday, and I welcome you all back. Thank you so much for those that have tuned in the past and that are sharing our videos. This is for the community, and our community is worldwide. So please, please, please share these. If you find them helpful, give us a like. If you have questions, put something in our comment section on Facebook, because again, I come up with these topics based on you and based on what people are telling me. And so if there's a topic that you really want to cover, we can talk about it here and I will make sure that we cover it. If I don't know enough about it, I will try and find an expert that does. So please, please, please reach out to us on Facebook and let us know how we're doing. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen without further ado, and we are going to get started. So welcome to another session of parenting and mental health. I again remind you, I'm Dr. Court. I am one of the behavioral health providers at Bay Community. Tonight, we are going to continue our conversation about creating connection. And specifically, we are going to, well, we'll get into that in a second. What we covered so far this year, I'm trying to be very deliberate about the way we progress this year. So what I felt was very important to do first was to talk about parenting as a partner, whether you are married to your partner or you two are divorced or separated or never married or live separate, or you're a single parent. We often have people that we partner with to help us parent, whether it's you're partnering with in-laws or your parents or friends, what have you. We often have partners that help us parent. And so what the last few weeks have been about is working with your partner, talking with your kids about different things that will help you create better connection. So at first, we talked about goals and habits. First week coming in, it was New Year's. We thought it was really important to cover goals and habits. We talked about how to create really big goals and then to start bringing that really big goal that you have and start coming down from there time-wise and size-wise, complexity of the goal, and coming down and creating much simpler goals that you can make the goal so simple that it seems silly not to achieve it, and then creating habits that help you achieve those goals. So if you weren't here for that one, you can go to our newsfeed on Facebook and go a couple weeks back, beginning of January, and you can watch that. And we're going to build on those goals and habits topic this week. From there, from the goals and habits, we talked about values and personality. We also, I had folks do a joy exercise, which many of you in my office have done. That joy exercise is really important in helping us give insight into what we actually value. Sometimes we think we know what we value, and we often regurgitate or repeat things that maybe our parents have told us, or maybe our community, our support group has told us that we should value. But when we really look at what brings us joy and where we get joy, what we get joy from, that gives us true insight into what we value. And then looking at that, which I'll talk about in a second, kind of helps us build what our values list is. Then we got into creating connection. Last week, my husband was a guest, not a guest speaker, but he did give some insight. We played kind of a version of the newlywed game, questions you can ask each other to create deeper connection. And whether you've been married 2 weeks or 30 years, there's always a chance to create connection. I'm always amazed when I ask these questions, how sometimes they change, especially when it's like favorite food or things like that. Sometimes those change, and it's really good to touch base with your partner or people that you live with, people that you co-parent with, right? If you're on good terms with people you co-parent with, these are the things you want to find out. If you're not on good terms with them, okay, fine, I understand that. I completely understand that you're not maybe going to want to create further connection there. However, I'm hoping to catch a group of people that haven't gotten there yet. If you are there, this is something that you can also, the creating connection, you can also do with your kids. Their tastes change as well. So this isn't just for couples, it's also something that can be applied to your kids. So a quick review. This was the values list. And what we did with that joy exercise was we put different items from our joy list and we put them into buckets. And those buckets became our kind of our values that guide us. So I took a large values list and I broke them down into 5 bigger kind of sections to make it easier for people to find the value word that really most closely aligned with who they felt they were and what they felt really spoke to them. So for instance, just quickly, the spiritual or philosophical beliefs, for some people that means religion and faith. For other people, it means peace and inner harmony. Those two things are not necessarily the same. They are both part of a philosophical or spiritual belief, but they can be very different to people. So having a more specific word for that is helpful. So as we did that helped us form our values. And from values, we talked about why those are important. It helps once we know what our values are, it gives us direction. It creates structure. It gives us boundaries. And once we have that, we're able to make better decisions. When we're wavering on decisions, if we have really clear boundaries, really clear structure, and we have a solid direction of where we're going, then it makes it much easier to make those decisions. I often refer to my value list when I'm making tough decisions. Does this choice say, if I was offered a new job? Don't worry, I haven't been, but if I was offered a new job, I would often go back to my value list and say, hey, does this align with my values? Does this still allow me to have that quality time with my family that I so value? Maybe not if it's in, the middle of Virginia somewhere. That's not really that close for us. That would create a lot of commuting time. So luckily, I have gone through this and I can use that. And I hope that you all are finding that useful as well. So then as the weeks went on, last week, we talked about connection and we talked about asking exploratory questions to help find connection with your partners. And we went a little bit further and we went into love languages. And I just wanted to remind people what those were. The reason we pointed them out is once you understand what other people in your household, whether it's your kids or a partner or even just a roommate, what their love languages are, and it doesn't just need to be romantic love. It can be a love of, hey, I care about you, right? It can be a friend love. These are the 5 different types as spoken by the book Love Languages that I pointed out last week. So getting to know what people around you kind of jive with or connect with will really help you be grateful in the right way, right? I'm sure most of us have had those moments where we were trying to express gratitude to someone and we did it in a way that they didn't really appreciate. And then we both felt not great because we didn't communicate it in the right way. So understanding someone's love language really can help with that. So from there, we talked about love languages, and from there, we are where we are going to be today. So I wanted to continue with the creating connection. Again, the creating connection doesn't just have to be with a romantic partner. It can be with anyone that you're co-parenting with. So when I speak of love, I'm not just speaking of romantic love. That can be part of it, right? But it doesn't have to be the whole thing. So for you, and what we're going to talk about tonight is a lot of this is based off of this book, which is Getting the Love That You Want. And that is a guide for couples is where this comes from. And it's by Dr. Hendricks. And so this is a good book. It's very thick. It has a lot of good content in it. One of the best exercises in there I've pulled out for us so that we can use that to help create deeper connection. So I told you before we used a different book by the Gottmans, which is the 7 principles of making a marriage work. We talked about that one and some things from there. That's also an excellent book. This week we're changing the books a little because I really love this exercise, and I've done this with many couples that I've worked with. So, creating a vision of love. Now, as you remember way back when we were doing goals at the beginning, I had you come up with a vision of what you wanted your life to look like. That was kind of your massively transformative goal, right? What did you want your professional life to look like? What did you want your health life to look like? What did you want your family life or your social life? You really had to sit down, and I asked you to daydream. So I'm going to ask you to do that again, because creating a vision, being able to visualize something that you want, gets you that much closer to making it real. Now, does that mean that if you create this imaginary person in your head, that person is going to magically appear? Probably not. But you will get clarity on the type of people that you want to spend time with, the type of people that you want to be around, and how you want to express and receive love. So, by creating this vision, just like with anything else, whether you're starting a company and you're creating a vision, or whether you're starting a new chapter in your life, creating visions for different aspects of your life are really important. So tonight we're going to focus on love and family. So it helps us provide direction for couples. If you do this as a couple, you will do a lot of these activities separately, and then I'll ask you to share, and then you will kind of create a joint vision. So for couples, it creates an appreciation of the journey they're on. For those of you that are parents currently and are, struggling through this together, absolutely, parenting is hard, and it's hard. And even for somebody that we get along with great, we feel like we are in alignment. There are times when we don't agree on how to parent in a certain situation or how to give and receive love. So this is important to go into. It deepens our understanding of each other, not just of our desires, but also, again, our goals and our concerns. So it, again, goes back to values and aligning, what's something I've heard couples before say, oh, my partner punished our kid for this really harshly, and I didn't think the punishment met what they did wrong. To me, that says there's a different value alignment, especially if that's something that happens repeatedly. That means that one person in the couple, one parent, values a certain thing more than the other, and therefore maybe it's being on time, right? So if the kid is repeatedly late, one parent comes down really hard and the other parent doesn't, then being timely is something that's really important to one parent and not to the other. And that's something that needs to be discussed so that you can be consistent and set really clear boundaries for your kids, which is so important, as we talked about time and time again. What this can also do, especially if you're an intercultural couple, whether it's race, culture, ethnicity, doesn't matter, but you come from different traditions, different cultures. If you do this, it can really help you align how you want to raise your kids, and it can also help you create some really cool new traditions. I have some family friends of ours that is the one person, and one parent is Jewish and one parent is Christian. And they've kind of combined their faith beliefs to create this really cool mix of both Christian and Jewish holidays and celebrations and things that they need to honor from their faith. And it's really cool to see. And they've done a really good job of kind of combining the two. And this can happen with any number, even if you're from different countries, different backgrounds, sometimes combining the two can be really fun. Even if you're both from a similar culture, you just come from different families. Every family has different traditions. And kind of talking about that first and deciding how you want and the traditions you want to create can be really important. I will tell you, a tradition my husband and I created is that we all get dressed up as a family for Halloween. Seems silly, it is, and it's so much fun, and the kids really get into it now. We've been doing this now for, 12 years. And every year now the kids get really excited about picking our theme and doing it together. So we hope to continue that. So this is a chance for you to create new family traditions, not just try to mesh together ones from your childhood. So what does this look like? Okay, now it's activity time. So if you don't know this about me, I often ask people to have paper and pencil nearby because I will ask you to write things down. So here is your chance to write something down. The first one we're going to talk about is vision of love. So once you have your paper and pencil, if you need to pause this, if you're watching as a recording, take a minute to pause and you can come back. Once you have something to write with and something to write on, I want you to use your values list from a while back and think about the boundaries that you've set and the goals that you've made and the love languages that inform how you communicate, especially understanding the love language of your partner and of your kids, right? Because we said that love language, you can do it with your kids too. We did this with our kids. It was super cool because we were not all the same. And it was kind of fun to figure it out. And, our kids' love languages might change more than ours do, but it was still neat to hear it. And as I shared last week, our son took to it immediately. He realized acts of service was a really strong love language for him. And once he figured that out and he realized that that was a love language of mine, he cleared all the dishes. I mean, what parent doesn't want your kid to clear their dishes, right? Without being asked. He did it because it was his way of saying, I love you without having to say it. It was marvelous. So these love languages can be really powerful. So once you have all that in order, I want you to sit down and I want you to create a vision of how you love and how you want to be loved, right? So how you love and how you want to be loved. And you want to use the present tense. So if being loved might mean if you're someone that is a drama person and you act and you are part of local plays, you might say something like, being loved looks, this love looks like to me someone that comes to my plays and brings flowers, or they're just there, they're watching. It might mean love might look like to me someone that gives me a hug every day. The one example I used here, we laugh together, right? So use present tense, and you want to write this in a series of single sentences. So it might look like something like this. So some of these might not feel exactly like loving when you're talking about financial stability and parenting. But for some people, that's the stage you are. If you're not in that stage, I mean, obviously this is parenting and mental health, so most of you are. So that's part of why I put these in here. Love looks a little different than it did when we were in our teens and 20s, right? When our teens and 20s, we probably wanted a lot of, words of affirmation and gifts, and I don't even know. But now, I mean, love for me looks a lot more like you're picking the kids up from school without me having to ask you 20 times. You get the kids to do chores when I'm out of the house. That looks like love. Of course, I'm an acts of service person, right? For someone that's not that, for words of affirmation, maybe you have the kids, make and write letters or cards to me, for special occasions or when I'm out of town, whatever it is. So these are the types of things that you would write down, and you can see they're all in the present tense. So I'll give you a few minutes. Again, pause this if you're watching this after the fact, and you can write down your list. So you're writing it down separate from your partner, separate from your kids. And you can ask your kids this too. This is a really important question to ask your kids. How do they see love? What does love look like to them? It might mean mommy and daddy tuck me in at night and read me a story. It might mean my parents come to my games and cheer me on. It might mean they make me food every night that I like. You'd be amazed at how simple it is to express love to your kids. And I'm almost getting choked up talking about this because I've heard these words from my kids before. Because, of course, all these things, my poor kids are the guinea pigs. And it's pretty remarkable to see when you ask them about these things, even if they're young, right? My youngest is 8. She's quite able to articulate how she wants to be loved. Snuggling is a big thing to her. Loving touch is like her huge love language. If I can lay in bed with her for a few minutes, even just a few minutes, and give her snuggles, she feels loved. So it's kind of cool. Like if thinking, wow, okay, so I don't have to get you that brand new bike or that amazing trip somewhere, right? Which you probably can't afford anyway, but why, then I'm not worried about doing these big things because my kid knows they're loved just by me laying in bed with them and snuggling or giving them a hug when they get home, right? Because that's something that she loves too. So think about that. You can do this with your kids. First, everyone does it separately. That's the beginning. Okay. Now, once you've done it, you've written your own version. This is what you're going to do. You're going to take your version and and again with kids, if you have younger kids, I want to make sure I mention this. If you have younger kids and you're doing this with them, they might not be able to write, their vision of love down that easily. You can get magazines or even pictures of your own family and just put them all on a pile on a table and say, hey, pick out the pictures that represent love to you and have them make a collage. They can cut it, you can get the safe scissors, you can have them cut them up and glue it on a piece of paper, or you can just have them pick out the ones that represent it to you, represent it for them, right? And so even if your kids are still learning how to spell or write, you can still do this activity with them. And what they'll do is they'll show you the pictures that mean something. So make sure when you're finding pictures, you have ones where someone's giving someone a gift, someone's like hugging somebody, you might be a little prep work to do it with your kids for those that can't write or have good expression. Especially, I'm a big fan of the feelings wheel or a picture of different emotions because that helps them express themselves because they don't always have the vocabulary. However, if you do that, do a little bit of prep work, it will help so much in understanding how your kids want to be loved and then express love, because then you'll see them do it and you'll understand, oh, my son's clearing the table for me. He's saying, I love you. So once you've written all this down, I want you to share your list, your vision, right? Your list of sentences with your partner that you parent with and with your kids if you're doing it with your kids. And then I want you to underline all the sentences that you have in common. And you can go back and forth. You can alternate. You can do all one and then all the other. I suggest alternating just because it might be a little easier to remember them. If your partner or your kid has one, your child has one that you agree with, but you didn't write on your list, go ahead and add it to your list. So we're going to stop the vision of love for a second, now that you've underlined and added, and we're going to now move on to the vision of family. Not all that different, same process, still writing down individual short sentences that are your vision of what you want family to look like. This can be very different for different people, right? For some people, it's really important for everyone to be together at dinner. For other people, it means they go on big adventures together. For other people, it just means that they communicate with each other every day. Whatever it is, write down your, I did a shorter list because I think you get the idea. Write down your list for what you think or what is your vision of family by yourself. Once you've done that, you're going to go through the same process. You're going to share this list with everyone else, your kids and your partner, and you're going to underline the sentences that you share in common. You're going to ignore the sentences that you don't share in common for right now. And then, of course, add any sentences that someone else had that you're like, oh yeah, that's a good one. I agree with that. So add that to your list. Once you've done that, now I want you to go back through both lists, your love one and your family one. And I want you to go through each sentence that is, just go through each sentence. And on a scale of 1 being the most important, really, really important, to 5, not so important. I mean, you put it on the list, so it has some significance, but of everything on the list, it's low, okay? So you could see on this list, going on yearly vacations while still feels like something that you envision as a family thing, part of your family vision, it's not the most important, right? Eating dinner together seems important. So, but it's still, if we don't eat to get dinner together every night, it's okay. But we support each other as a one, we talk through difficult situations together as a family, which some people don't, right? Some people want to process it on their own. That feels more important. In this case, this one says, talk through difficulties as a family. If that's important to you, then, and that's helps in this case, this one was 1, right? So you've already underlined the ones you have in common. And you've added the ones. So make sure you rank the ones that you added as well. Now I want you to go back and I want you to circle, okay? I want you to go back and circle the ones that you feel like are the most important, okay? And you only get to pick 2. It's going to be hard. So pick 2, you circle those, okay? Once you've done that, now we're going to go to the other end of the spectrum. And I want you to put check marks by one that you think are going to be really difficult to do. Maybe talking through difficulties as a family is really, really important. It's a number 1. It's circled. It's also going to be really difficult. Okay. Challenge accepted, right? This is going to be a priority then, of figuring out how to make that work. So put a check mark by any of the ones that you feel like might be difficult to implement, to do as a family or as a couple. Now, the next step here is, now that you've shared this, everyone's ranked, what you're going to do is you're going to work together as a family or as a couple to create a joint vision. So my suggestion to you is you take your top 2 and you put those on the list first. And then you decide to pick maybe a few more. So if you're doing it with the family, you're doing it with your kids too, then you have to pick their top ones and put on the list as well. Once you have your top things that are part of your family vision, you can talk through it. Maybe you add 1 or 2 more things. And once you've made that joint family list, you're going to talk through how you make your number 1s a priority. So of course, remember, everyone got to put their number 1s on the list. So if people didn't have the same number 1s, you're going to have to re-rank. Now everyone's coming together and they've got to re-rank what they feel is most important to least, to least important. And it's not, you're not giving, more than one thing can be a 1, right? or a 2 or a 3 or a 4 or 5. And that might be tough to come to a decision. So if it's tough to come to a decision, put a check mark by it and recognize that it might be tough to come to an agreement on this one. So for instance, the eating dinner together. Mom and dad might find that to be really important. Maybe it was something they did as kids and they really appreciated it. The kids are like, we don't need to eat dinner together. Okay, fine. So, you'll navigate your family and you understand your dynamics, but make sure you sit down together and you figure out how to make it a priority. Part of making it a priority and figuring out how to do it is going to be pulling out your family calendar. So I've talked about this before. If you don't have a family calendar, get one. If you want to do it on paper, fine. If you want to do it on something that's online, like a Google Calendar or an Apple Calendar, that's great too. When you do that, make sure you share the calendar with your partner or anyone else that's involved. I can tell you from my family, my husband and I have my work calendars that I can't always share, specifics of who I'm seeing or whatever, but I have blocks of time, like I'm at work, I'm in the office on this day. So, and then it's just a block of time. But any appointments I have after work, the kids' practices, social events, all of that goes on our calendar and we all share each other's calendars. And it's really nice because at any given time when I'm trying to plan something, I can look at the calendar and I can see if my kids have a game or practice or a school activity, if my husband had made plans for something, if I have a doctor's appointment, all these different things that come up. And the more people that are involved, the more complicated it gets. And as they get older, I feel like, people start planning their own schedules, it gets even more complicated. So, you have that joint calendar, look at your calendar and figure out and actually block out time to do these things that are important. So obviously difficulties aren't going to happen all the time. So you don't have to block out time to talk through difficult things. However, the eating dinner together, block that time out, right? And put it there so it reminds people when they're trying to make a doctor's appointment that unless someone's really, really sick and that's the only time available, they won't book time there, right? Because it becomes sacred time. So that's what I mean by putting this. And once you finally have your joint list, post it somewhere where everyone can see it. That will help remind everyone what's important to you, to your partner, to the family, and it helps everyone make better decisions. The other thing I would suggest is taking a minute. We did kind of this life goals thing a few weeks ago. Now that you've made your family vision, go back and look at this life goals that you created and see how your family vision fits with your life goals. How does your family vision fit with your physical goals, your spiritual goals, occupational, social, etc.? Compare it. And if you see something that is in conflict, then that's something you want to sit down and work out with your family. Yes, this is a lot of time doing kind of strategic things. The good news about this is just like if you were in a business, you do a lot of this up front, then the repeat of this gets easier. I've done this a few times with my family. So now when we do it, it's a really quick repeat because we already know what we're doing. We make our list, we kind of compare, and now our lists stay pretty similar because we're on a similar path together and we understand each other's goals. So it will get easier the more times you do it. So take a minute to make sure they're aligned with your life goals. And then also a little reminder when we talked about habits is once you have what you want to do as a family down, maybe it's you all want to be healthy. Maybe that's something like we exercise together. If that's a family goal, then you need to make sure that you do this in such a way that it can become a habit. So again, we talked about this before. You don't have to worry about joining a tribe. Your family's your tribe, right? So that's taken care of. Small goals. We'll start small as far as exercising. Maybe the first day is you just go and walk the dog together as a family. Put a happy face next to every day that you walk the dog together. And then slowly, maybe you go from walking the dog to going on hikes on the weekend, whatever. You add small things that allow you to exercise together. And as the kids, maybe if the kids are involved with sports, the way you exercise together changes. But tracking those habits and adjusting them and attaching them to other habits that you already have or things you're already going to do will help you keep this as a family uh, priority. So that's what I have for tonight. I hope this was helpful. I also wanted to throw out, just as a side note, that for those of you, and this might be kind of hard to read, so I apologize if it is, but for those of you that are interested in strengthening your relationship with your partners, there is going to be a couples workshop that will be run by myself and actually the owner or the co-owner of Annapolis Counseling Center to help couples. This isn't so much for couples in trouble. We all have our difficulties. This is more for couples though that want to strengthen their relationship, people that want to increase their communication, strengthen their connection, find and go through all of these as a group, right? Finding shared goals and direction. So if that interests you, the workshop is going to run live on February 18th. And then there will be some follow-on sessions online to kind of come back to the original vision. And if you're interested in it, you can post something on Bay Community's Facebook page. You can also reach out to me. You can go to the Annapolis Counseling Center page. Either way, you can find out more information about this if you reach out to Bay Community, and I will make sure everyone has the information. So if you're part of if you have a partner that you want to work on your parenting skills and work through the things you've been doing through the last few weeks, this could be a great way to practice it on February 18th. With that, I wish you a good night. Keep working on connection. Be curious with your partner. Be curious with your kids. And be curious with yourself, right? And be kind to yourself because we're all we've got. So enjoy your night, and I will talk to you all again next week, same time, same place. Have a great night.